My dad spotted me limping through a torrential Atlanta downpour with my 1-year-old son Malik balanced on my hip. He slammed the brakes of his Ford F-15, the tires screeching against the wet pavement. He jumped out rain immediately, soaking his jacket. "Why are you walking? Where is your car?" he demanded, his eyes darting to my ankle encased in a walking boot. I wiped the rain from my face and adjusted Malik's weight. His mom took it. She showed up at the grocery store and snatched the keys right out of my hand. She told me I was lucky they even let me stay in their house and that the car belongs to their family now to keep me controlled. My dad didn't offer a hug or empty platitudes. He just grabbed the diaper bag from my shoulder and opened the passenger door. "Get in the car. We are fixing this tonight." What he didn't know was that I wasn't just planning to get my keys back. Tucked beneath the spare diapers and wipes in that bag was a laptop containing the financial execution of an entire family. Before I tell you how I brought down their fake empire, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to show people exactly who they are dealing with. The rain beat a relentless rhythm against the windshield as we drove through the slick Atlanta streets. The rhythmic thumping matched the heavy, steady thudding in my chest. Beside me, my father Jerome gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity. He had always been a man of action, a retired Marine who believed problems were things to be confronted and neutralized, not endured. I watched his jaw clench a muscle feathering under his cheek, and I knew exactly what he was thinking. He was picturing the confrontation, mapping out how to retrieve a stolen SUV from a woman he already despised. He thought this was a simple matter of theft and disrespect. He was focused on the immediate insult, the sheer audacity of Barbara leaving his injured daughter and infant grandson stranded in a storm. He didn't know the depth of the rot. He didn't know that the stolen car was merely a symptom of a much larger systemic disease infecting Marcus's family. He saw the surface-level disrespect, the blatant power play from a mother-in-law desperate to exert control. What he couldn't see, what no one but me had seen yet, was the intricate web of financial fraud, desperate loans, and precarious social climbing that defined their existence. They portrayed themselves as the black elite of Atlanta, hosting lavish parties and driving luxury cars. But their entire life was built on a foundation of sand, and I had the documentation to prove it. "Did she touch you?" my dad asked, his voice low and tight. "When she took the keys, did she put her hands on you, Maya?" I looked down at Malik, who had finally fallen asleep against my chest, his small breaths warm through my damp shirt. "No, she just grabbed them off the checkout counter while I was paying, said something about how a woman who doesn't earn a paycheck doesn't need an $80,000 vehicle." My dad let out a short, harsh laugh. "Doesn't earn a paycheck? Right. Because raising her grandson and managing her son's chaotic life isn't work. And last I checked, my name is on the title of that car, not hers. We'll see how much she likes walking when I report it stolen." I didn't correct him about the title. I didn't tell him that I had quietly transferred the ownership to a corporate entity a month ago as part of a larger strategy. I needed him focused on the immediate anger, the protective instinct that would get us through the front door of Barbara's ridiculous McMansion. I needed his intimidating presence to distract them while I executed my plan. The truth was, I wasn't the helpless, unemployed housewife they all believed me to be. When Marcus and I got married 3 years ago, I had just finished a grueling stint at a top accounting firm specializing in forensic audits. I was burned out, exhausted by the corporate grind, and when I got pregnant with Malik shortly after the wedding, Marcus insisted I stay home. "Let me take care of you," he had said, playing the role of the traditional successful provider. "My real estate business is booming. You don't need to work." And for a while, I believed him. Or rather, I wanted to believe him. I wanted the stability he promised. But old habits die hard, and when the bank statements started looking strange, when large sums of money were moved between accounts without clear explanation, the auditor in me woke up. I started digging. At first, it was just curiosity, a desire to understand our household finances. But what I found wasn't just messy bookkeeping. It was a sophisticated, desperate shell game. I didn't confront Marcus immediately. I knew that in his family, confronting the golden child with his failures would only result in a united front of denial and gaslighting. Barbara would defend him, his brother Darius would cover for him, and his sister-in-law Chloe would use it as another opportunity to highlight her own supposed superiority. I needed undeniable proof. I needed a complete picture of their financial architecture before I made a move. So I played the part they assigned me. The quiet, dependent wife. The woman who asked no questions and accepted the scraps of respect they threw my way. "We are going straight to Barbara's house," my dad said, interrupting my thoughts as he navigated a sharp turn. "I don't care if they are hosting the mayor. We are getting that car back tonight." "They're probably having drinks with Chloe," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "It's Thursday. Chloe always comes over for wine on Thursdays to complain about how hard it is running a spa. Chloe. The mere thought of her made my blood boil hotter than Barbara's theft. She had married into the family a year after I did, and from day one she had made it her mission to establish herself at the top of the hierarchy. She loved playing the benevolent, successful white savior to her black in-laws, constantly offering unsolicited advice and thinly veiled insults about my lack of ambition. "Let her complain," my dad grumbled. "She can complain while I take the keys back. I'm not leaving without them, Maya. You understand me? Nobody treats my daughter like a second-class citizen and gets away with it." I looked out the window at the blurred lights of the city. The rain was easing up slightly as we approached the gated community where Barbara lived. "I know, Dad," I said quietly. "We are going to handle it." I patted the diaper bag resting near my feet, feeling the solid rectangular shape of the laptop hidden beneath the baby clothes. We were going to handle it all right. But not in the way he expected. They thought they had taken my mobility, my independence. They thought they had put me in my place. They had no idea they had just handed me the match to burn their entire fake empire to the ground. The heavy oak double doors of my mother-in-law's house were never locked before 10 in the evening. My father didn't bother knocking. He simply pushed the heavy brass handle, the solid wood swinging inward with a loud thud that echoed through the grand marble-floored foyer. We stepped inside, dripping cold rainwater onto the pristine entryway. The house was stiflingly warm, smelling of expensive vanilla candles and unearned privilege. From the sunken living room to our right, the soft clinking of crystal glasses abruptly stopped. There sat Barbara lounging on her custom velvet sofa, like a queen holding court. Around her neck sat a dazzling diamond pendant. I recognized the cut and the platinum setting instantly. It was the exact necklace she had purchased 3 weeks ago using a supplementary credit card tied to my primary account, a card I had explicitly instructed my husband to destroy. She was casually sipping a dark, robust red wine, looking perfectly unbothered by the raging storm outside, or the fact that she had just left her infant grandson stranded in it. Sitting directly across from her, perched on a matching velvet accent chair, was Chloe. Chloe was married to Marcus's younger brother, Darius. She was a petite blonde woman who had perfected the art of weaponizing her fragility and utilizing her tears to manipulate every social situation to her advantage. She always wore soft, neutral tones to project an image of quiet, effortless luxury, and tonight was no exception. She looked up at us with wide, innocent eyes that entirely masked the venom she usually reserved just for me when the men of the family were not around. Barbara slowly lowered her wineglass, her lips curling into a sneer of pure, unadulterated disgust. "Did you actually call your daddy to come throw a tantrum for you, Maya?" she asked, her voice dripping with condescension. She did not even offer to take her sleeping grandson from my tired arms. She just gestured vaguely toward the floor with her manicured hand. "You are tracking mud and filthy rainwater all over my authentic Persian rug. Do you have any idea how much that costs to professionally clean? Of course you do not. You have no concept of the maintenance required for a lifestyle like ours. You have been clinging to my son for 3 years, not earning a single dime, contributing absolutely nothing to this family's legacy, while he breaks his back day and night to provide a roof over your head." I stood there, the rainwater dripping from my hair onto my jacket, securely holding my sleeping child. I did not blink. I did not raise my voice. I did not give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I just looked at that diamond necklace resting against her collarbone and thought about the highly classified forensic audit file currently sitting on the hard drive in my diaper bag. But Barbara was not finished. She turned her gaze to Chloe with a look of exaggerated theatrical pride. "You should really look at Chloe and learn how a woman of actual value carries herself. Barbara continued, making sure her voice echoed perfectly off the high vaulted ceilings. Her family just funded her gorgeous new medical spa over in Buckhead. She is a brilliant entrepreneur. She is bringing real wealth and prestige into this family. She is a true partner to her husband. Meanwhile, you just sit at home draining my son's bank accounts, acting like a perpetual victim, and then have the audacity to complain when I take back a vehicle that my family generously paid for. You should be on your knees thanking me for letting you live this life. Before I could speak, Chloe decided it was her turn to perform her favorite role. Chloe set her crystal wine glass down on the marble coffee table and let out a soft, breathy sigh. She looked at me with an expression of deep, manufactured pity, the kind of look that was explicitly designed to humiliate rather than comfort. "Oh, Maya," Chloe cooed, her voice laced with that specific brand of fake sympathy she used to assert social dominance. "You are getting Mom's beautiful rug completely wet. You look so frantic and disheveled right now. It is honestly a little embarrassing for you. If you needed money for an Uber to get home from the grocery store, you could have just called me. I can easily lend you a few bucks, so you do not have to drag your poor father out into the storm." She stood up, smoothing down her immaculate cashmere skirt, and took a cautious step toward me, as if she were approaching a volatile, wounded animal. She wanted to play the refined peacemaker in front of my father. "You just need to accept the reality of your situation," Chloe said, lowering her voice into a condescending whisper meant just for me. "Marcus is a highly successful real estate broker. This family operates at a very high level. You do not bring any income or status to the table. You should be grateful they let you drive that luxury SUV at all. Please do not try to act like you are on our level, Maya. It just makes things awkward for everyone involved. You do not belong in this world, and throwing a fit will not change that." The sheer audacity of her words hung heavily in the air of the living room. This woman, whose entire spa venture was secretly financed through a complex web of fraudulent loans orchestrated by my husband and his mother, was standing in front of me lecturing me about wealth and status. She was playing the wealthy, benevolent savior, completely oblivious to the terrifying fact that she was nothing more than a disposable pawn in Barbara's financial shell game. She truly thought her proximity to whiteness and her family's initial investment made her untouchable in this house. My father had heard enough. I felt the intense heat of his anger radiating beside me. He took a heavy, deliberate step forward, his wet leather boots sinking deep into the expensive rug Barbara loved so much. He was a man who commanded absolute respect without ever having to ask for it, a man who had seen real combat and had zero tolerance for the petty, venomous games of suburban socialites. The sudden aggressive shift in his posture made Chloe physically recoil. Her fake sympathy instantly dissolved into genuine, wide-eyed fear as she scrambled backward toward the safety of the velvet sofa. "Listen to me very carefully." My father growled, his voice vibrating with a quiet, dangerous energy that seemed to instantly lower the temperature in the room. "I am not here to play high society games with you people. I am not here to listen to your delusions of grandeur. I am here for the keys to the vehicle that belongs to my daughter. And if you do not hand them over in the next 5 seconds, I am going to teach you exactly what kind of level we operate on. And I promise you, it is not a level you are prepared for." Barbara's eyes widened, and for a fraction of a second, the arrogant, untouchable facade slipped. She realized she was not dealing with the quiet, compliant daughter-in-law she thought she had successfully broken. She was dealing with a fiercely protective father. She clutched her wine glass tighter, her manicured knuckles turning stark white against the crystal, suddenly realizing the precariousness of her physical situation. But before my father could take another step toward her, before Barbara could formulate a lie to defend herself, a sharp, arrogant voice rang out from the top of the grand, sweeping staircase. "That is absolutely enough. Call the cops, Mom." We all looked up. Marcus was slowly descending the curved wooden staircase, casually adjusting the cuffs of his tailored suit jacket. He looked down at us with a cold, calculating glare completely devoid of any affection or concern for me or for his sleeping son resting against my chest. "I am not playing these dramatic games with you anymore, Maya," Marcus declared, his voice echoing authoritatively through the foyer. "I will have your father arrested for trespassing and threatening my family right now, and as for you, I am stripping you of custody tonight." Marcus stood next to Barbara and Chloe, adjusting his Rolex. He looked at my dad, completely ignoring me, acting like the reasonable man dealing with hysterical women. He crossed his arms. Maya is going through postpartum depression. She is delusional. She hasn't worked a day since we got married. I bought that car. It is marital property. I gave my mother permission to use it to run errands for the family. Before my father could explode, the loud wail of a police siren cut through the rain. Flashing red and blue lights illuminated the grand foyer windows. 2 officers, a seasoned veteran and a younger rookie, stepped onto the porch. They had arrived exactly when I expected. I had called them on the ride over, explaining that an $80,000 corporate vehicle had been stolen from a grocery store parking lot, and the tracker showed it at this address. The veteran officer stepped inside, his hand resting casually near his belt. "Ma'am, we need the keys to the black SUV in the driveway. The vehicle has been reported stolen." Marcus stepped in front of his mother, flashing his signature $1 million real estate broker smile. "Officers, there is a misunderstanding. This is a domestic dispute. My wife is unwell. I purchased that vehicle. It is marital property, and my mother has my full authorization to drive it." The officer looked at Marcus, unimpressed by the tailored suit. "Sir, the registered owner reported it stolen. We need the keys now, or we will have to proceed with an arrest." Marcus let out a condescending sigh and turned to me. "Maya, tell them to leave. You are embarrassing yourself. You know perfectly well that car is registered in my name. I bought it as a push present." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice to defend my sanity. I simply reached into the diaper bag, pulled out my phone, and opened a digital document folder. I held the screen out to the veteran officer. "Actually, officer, my husband is mistaken. The vehicle is not marital property. It is registered to a corporate entity, Aegis Financials. Here is the registration, the corporate ownership documents, and my identification, proving that I am the director of forensic auditing for the firm. The vehicle was assigned to me for professional use. The woman sitting on the couch stole it from a public parking lot. That is grand theft of a corporate asset." The officer scrutinized the documents on my phone, nodding slowly. He turned back to Barbara. "Ma'am, I am asking you one last time. Hand over the keys, or turn around and put your hands behind your back." The color drained entirely from Barbara's face. The smug, untouchable matriarch was suddenly terrified. She looked at Marcus, her eyes wide with panic. "Marcus, do something. Tell them they are wrong." Marcus was staring at me, his jaw slack. "Aegis Financials," he repeated the name, clearly registering. "You work for Aegis." Chloe jumped up from the velvet sofa, stepping toward the officers. Her voice took on that sharp, demanding tone of someone accustomed to never being questioned. "Excuse me, officers. You are making a massive mistake. My husband's family is very prominent in this community. My father plays golf with the chief of police. This woman is having a mental breakdown. You cannot just come in here and threaten my mother-in-law." The veteran officer turned his attention to Chloe, his expression hardening. "Ma'am, step back immediately. If you interfere with this investigation, you will be arrested for obstruction." Chloe froze, her white privilege utterly useless against corporate theft charges. She shrank back, hiding behind Marcus. Barbara, realizing that no one was going to save her, reached into the pocket of her expensive cardigan with trembling hands. She pulled out the key fob and dropped it onto the marble floor. It landed with a sharp clatter that echoed in the silent room. My father bent down, retrieved the keys, and handed them to me. Marcus glared at me, his face contorted with a mixture of shock and fury. "You dare humiliate my mother like this?" In front of everyone, I held his gaze, slipping the keys into my pocket. "I didn't humiliate her, Marcus. I just enforced the law." He stepped closer, lowering his voice into a vicious whisper. "Tomorrow night is the family company anniversary gala. All our major investors will be there. Chloe's parents are flying in. I will announce our divorce from the stage. I will tell everyone how unstable you are. I will make sure you are destroyed in this town. You will never see Malik again." I smiled, a genuine, relaxed smile. "I look forward to it. Make sure you wear your best suit, Marcus." The following evening, the crystal chandeliers of the St. Regis Ballroom cast a golden glow over Atlanta's most influential figures. I walked through the double doors, my heels sinking slightly into the plush carpet, moving with a steady, unbroken rhythm. I wore an emerald green gown that my mother-in-law had once deemed too bold for a woman of my station. Tonight, it was my armor. The room was a sea of tailored tuxedos and designer dresses, a carefully curated gathering of the city's black elite, mingling effortlessly with Chloe's wealthy white relatives. The clinking of champagne flutes and the low hum of jazz string instruments masked the financial decay I knew was rotting beneath the floorboards of this entire event. As I navigated the crowded room, I caught sight of Barbara holding court near the ice sculpture. She wore a smug, victorious expression, clearly believing the events of the previous night were a minor setback, a temporary inconvenience she had already smoothed over in her mind. I ignored her and scanned the room for my assigned seat. I didn't have to look far before Chloe materialized from the crowd holding a clipboard like a weapon. She wore a champagne-colored silk dress that matched her manufactured persona perfectly. She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin with surprising force, and steered me away from the prime tables near the stage. She led me past the tables draped in white linen and adorned with towering floral centerpieces, pushing me toward the very back of the ballroom. She finally stopped at a small, unadorned table pushed dangerously close to the kitchen swinging doors. The table was currently occupied by 3 members of the catering staff on their break. They looked up confused by my presence in a formal gown. Chloe leaned in the scent of her expensive floral perfume, suffocating in the tight space. She lowered her voice to a harsh, mocking whisper. "You really should know your place by now, Maya. You do not belong at the main tables with the investors and the family. My parents flew in from Connecticut for this, and they certainly do not need to be subjected to your desperate energy. Tonight is about celebrating real success, not indulging a housewife clinging to a dying marriage." She picked up a stray napkin from the table and tossed it lightly toward my plate. "Just sit here and try to be invisible. In about 20 minutes, Marcus is going to take that stage and officially announce the divorce. He is going to inform all our major partners that he has successfully restructured the company and transferred all the core assets into Barbara's secure trust. By the time dessert is served, you will be legally and financially erased from this family. You will be on the street with absolutely nothing. Consider this corner table a preview of your new reality." I did not flinch. I did not cry. I did not give her the satisfaction of seeing a single crack in my composure. Instead, I calmly reached over to the passing dessert tray of a startled waiter and picked up a small lemon tart. I took a slow, deliberate bite, savoring the sharp citrus flavor, and locked eyes with my sister-in-law. "You are so eager to secure your position at the top of this hierarchy, Chloe," I said, my voice smooth and conversational, completely unaffected by her venom. "But you are playing checkers while the rest of us are playing chess." Chloe scoffed, crossing her arms defensively. "Save the cryptic warnings, Maya. You have zero leverage. Marcus already told me about your little stunt with the police last night. You are just a bitter woman losing her meal ticket." I swallowed the bite of the tart and wiped my fingers delicately with a napkin. "Am I? Let me ask you a very simple question, sister-in-law. Have you ever actually wondered why a highly successful commercial real estate firm like Marcus's would need to continuously funnel massive amounts of liquid cash through a boutique medical spa?" I watched the arrogant smirk freeze on her face. Her eyes darted rapidly, the gears in her head grinding as she tried to process my words. "What are you talking about?" Chloe demanded, her voice losing its previous manufactured smoothness. "Marcus is an angel investor in my business. He believes in my vision. He is helping me scale the brand." "Angel investor," I repeated, letting out a soft, genuine laugh. "Chloe Medical Spas do not require weekly cash injections of $50,000 to scale. They definitely do not require complex offshore routing numbers to pay local estheticians. You let Barbara and Marcus manage the books for your little vanity project because you wanted to focus on the aesthetics, right? You signed the incorporation papers they put in front of you without reading a single page." The champagne color of her dress suddenly seemed to match the sickly pallor washing over her face. She took a step back, her clipboard trembling slightly against her hip. "You are lying. You are just trying to get in my head because you are losing everything tonight." "I am a forensic auditor, Chloe," I said, leaning in closer, invading her space just as she had invaded mine moments before. "My entire career is built on finding the money that desperate men try to hide. Marcus did not invest in your spa. He used your social security number and your signature to set up a massive laundering front. Every single fraudulent dollar he stole from the investors sitting in this very room was washed clean through your business accounts. When the federal indictments come down, your name is the very first one at the top of the paperwork. Chloe stood completely paralyzed. The arrogant, untouchable white savior persona shattered into a million pieces right in front of the kitchen doors. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. The absolute terror in her eyes told me she knew I was telling the truth. She knew she had never looked at the ledgers. She knew she had blindly signed every document Marcus handed her. Before she could mount any sort of defense or ask another question, the sharp, clear sound of a spoon tapping against crystal rang out through the grand ballroom. The ambient chatter of the crowd immediately died down. The string quartet stopped playing. Every head turned toward the front of the room. Marcus stepped confidently up to the sleek acrylic podium, bathed in bright white spotlight. He wore a custom-tailored velvet tuxedo, his signature smile plastered across his face. He gripped the edges of the podium, looking out over the sea of wealthy investors, his mother nodding approvingly from the front table. He was fully prepared to execute my honor, to destroy my reputation, and to secure his false legacy. The main event was about to begin. Marcus cleared his throat, leaning into the microphone with the practiced ease of a seasoned politician. He let a moment of heavy manufactured silence fall over the room, ensuring every eye was fixed firmly upon him. He adjusted his posture, portraying the image of a reluctant but resolute patriarch facing a difficult crossroad. Friends, family, esteemed colleagues. Marcus began, his voice dropping an octave to convey a deep, solemn gravity. We are gathered tonight not just to celebrate the anniversary of our company, but to celebrate the enduring legacy of this family. We have built something monumental together. We have weathered economic downturns and market fluctuations, and we have always emerged stronger, more united, and more prosperous. He paused, offering a tight, appreciative smile to his mother Barbara, who sat at the front table dabbing at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. However, Marcus continued, his tone shifting from triumphant to mournful. The strength of a foundation is sometimes tested not by external forces, but by internal fractures. It is with a remarkably heavy heart that I must share some deeply personal news with all of you tonight. As a man who values transparency and integrity above all else, I cannot stand before you and pretend everything is perfect when it is fundamentally broken. The ballroom grew unnervingly quiet. The clinking of silverware against china ceased entirely. I felt the collective shift in the room's energy, the sudden, eager anticipation of a scandal unfolding in real time. Beside me, my father's hand curled into a tight fist on the table, his knuckles turning white. Many of you know my wife Maya, Marcus said, his voice trembling with perfectly calibrated emotion. He didn't look at me, keeping his gaze fixed on the sympathetic faces in the front row. What you do not know is the profound struggle our family has endured behind closed doors. Maya has been battling severe unchecked mental health issues since the birth of our son Malik. We have tried everything. We have offered support, resources, patience. But her condition has deteriorated into a state of volatile paranoia. He took a slow, deep breath, gripping the edges of the podium as if steadying himself against a physical blow. Her behavior has become increasingly erratic and tragically dangerous. Last night, she orchestrated a terrifying incident at my mother's home, displaying a level of emotional and verbal abuse that I can no longer tolerate. Therefore, to protect the safety of my family, and most importantly, to protect the well-being of my infant son, I have formally filed for divorce this morning. I will be seeking full sole custody of Malik to ensure he is raised in a stable, nurturing environment, far removed from this toxicity. A collective gasp echoed through the grand ballroom. The silence that followed was suffocating, heavy with judgment and misplaced pity. I felt the immediate stinging burn of 100 eyes turning toward the back corner where Chloe had banished me. I saw the whispered comments behind raised hands, the exchanged glances of shock and condemnation. They were looking at me not as a woman betrayed, but as a broken, unstable liability who had finally been exposed. Chloe, sitting near the stage, turned in her chair and shot me a look of pure, unadulterated triumph. She had won. The narrative was set. I was officially the villain of their story, the disposable outcast being publicly excised from their elite circle. My father's chair scraped violently against the floor as he abruptly stood up. The raw, unfiltered fury radiating from him was palpable. He wasn't going to let this stand. He was going to walk up to that stage and physically dismantle the man who was attempting to destroy his daughter. I reached out my hand, clamping down hard on his forearm. "No, Dad," I whispered, my voice steady, betraying none of the adrenaline surging through my veins. "Let him finish digging his grave. It just makes the burial that much easier." He looked down at me, the anger in his eyes battling with the trust he had in me. He saw the cold, absolute certainty in my expression. Slowly, reluctantly, he sat back down, his eyes never leaving Marcus on the stage. I stood up. I didn't rush. I didn't shrink under the weight of the room's collective glare. I smoothed the skirt of my emerald green gown and began walking toward the stage, my heels clicking rhythmically against the polished wood floor that bordered the carpet. The crowd parted instinctively, a mixture of morbid curiosity and apprehension clearing a path for me. Marcus saw me approaching, and his perfectly cultivated expression of sorrow morphed into genuine panic for a fleeting second before he masked it with arrogant annoyance. He thought I was coming up to scream, to cry, to validate every single lie he had just spun. He thought I was playing exactly the role he had written for me. I stepped onto the stage, the bright spotlight momentarily blinding me. I didn't look at Barbara, whose mouth was hanging slightly open in shock. I didn't look at Chloe, whose triumphant smile had frozen into a mask of sudden unease. I walked directly up to Marcus. He moved to block the microphone, leaning in close. "Maya, stop. You are making a fool of yourself. Security is going to drag you out of here in front of everyone." I didn't argue. I simply reached around him, my movement so fast and decisive he didn't have time to react, and pulled the microphone firmly from the stand. I turned to face the sea of wealthy investors, the elite socialites, the people who had just silently convicted me, based on the words of a con artist. "You speak so eloquently about protection, Marcus," I said, my voice echoing clearly and powerfully across the vast room, cutting through the lingering murmurs. "You speak so passionately about safeguarding your family's legacy and protecting the vulnerable. That is a truly beautiful sentiment." I turned slightly, locking eyes with him. He was standing entirely too close, his jaw clenched, his eyes silently threatening me to stop. "So," I continued, turning my attention back to the captivated audience, "since we are prioritizing transparency and protection tonight, why don't we show everyone exactly how you have been protecting their financial investments?" I did not wait for his permission. I turned on my heel, the emerald fabric of my gown sweeping across the stage, and walked purposefully toward the audio-visual control podium tucked off to the side. The young technician manning the station looked terrified, his hands hovering over the soundboard, but I simply offered him a sharp, reassuring nod. I reached into the hidden pocket of my dress, retrieved a sleek silver USB drive, and slotted it directly into the master input port. A high-pitched hum briefly interrupted the jazz music before the massive floor-to-ceiling LED screen behind Marcus flared to life. The soft, ambient branding of his real estate firm was instantly replaced by stark, high-contrast financial data. Rows of bank statements, highlighted transfer logs, and a sprawling, interconnected web of corporate entities illuminated the ballroom. The diagram was undeniable. Bright red arrows tracked massive sums of money flowing from investor escrow accounts directly into a labyrinth of phantom holding companies. I walked back to center stage. The microphone felt cool and solid in my grip. My mother-in-law Barbara loves to remind anyone who will listen that I am a useless housewife. I began, my voice echoing evenly across the vast room. She loves to tell her country club friends that I just sit at home all day, staring at a computer screen, contributing nothing to this family's legacy. She considers my presence in her pristine world to be a charitable act on their part. I paused, letting the silence amplify my words. The entire ballroom was completely mesmerized by the glowing financial autopsy displayed behind me. Well, she was right about one thing. I did spend a lot of time staring at a computer screen, and thanks to those endless keystrokes, I discovered exactly what this family's legacy actually is. I gestured toward the screen. This highly prosperous real estate empire, the one you have all poured your hard-earned capital into, does not exist. It is a house of cards, a textbook Ponzi scheme. A pandemonium erupted. The collective gasp of the crowd shattered into a dozen different conversations. Men in tailored suits stood up pointing at the screen. Women clutched their evening bags, their eyes darting between Marcus and the damning numbers flashing in high definition. Barbara leaped from her chair at the front table, her refined, aristocratic facade completely vanished. She knocked over her crystal wine glass, sending a dark red stain bleeding across the white linen tablecloth. "Turn that off right now!" Barbara shrieked, her voice cracking with pure panic. She pointed a trembling finger at me. "Security, get this crazy woman off the stage. Throw her out into the street. She is having a psychotic break." Several heavily built security guards lined the perimeter of the ballroom dressed in sharp black suits with earpieces. Barbara looked at them expectantly, waiting for them to rush the stage and drag me away. Not a single guard moved. They stood like statues, their hands clasped professionally in front of them, their eyes fixed straight ahead. I had anticipated this exact scenario. Earlier that afternoon, I had arranged a private meeting with the hotel's general manager and the head of security. I had presented my credentials as a licensed forensic auditor and provided them with a sealed folder containing a federal subpoena targeting Marcus's firm scheduled to be executed at dawn. I politely informed them that any attempt to forcibly remove me from the stage while I presented evidence of financial crimes would make the hotel complicit in suppressing an active federal investigation. The security team had strict orders to stand down and observe. I looked down at Barbara, who was frantically waving her hands at the immobile guards. "They are not going to save you, Barbara. No one is." I turned my attention back to the investors in the crowd. "Look at the screen, ladies and gentlemen. Follow the red arrows. Those numbers represent your initial deposits, your retirement funds, your children's college savings. Marcus did not invest them in emerging commercial properties here in Atlanta. He funneled them." I pressed a button on the presentation remote. The screen zoomed in on a specific cluster of transactions. $50,000 a week went straight into a vanity medical spa owned by his sister-in-law, Chloe, to wash the cash clean. I pointed directly at Chloe's table. She was hyperventilating, pressing a napkin to her mouth. Her wealthy parents from Connecticut stared at her in sheer horror, the reality of their daughter's criminal exposure crashing down on them. "Look at the subsequent transfers." I continued, my voice slicing through the rising clamor of the betrayed investors. Hundreds of thousands of dollars siphoned off to purchase luxury SUVs, lavish vacations, and custom diamond jewelry. I locked eyes with Barbara. Instinctively, her hand flew up to clutch the glittering diamond pendant resting against her throat, the very necklace she had flaunted the night before. That necklace Barbara is wearing right now was paid for by the Harrison family's pension fund. The velvet sofa she sits on was financed by the down payments of 3 separate families who believed they were buying their first homes. They took your money to build a fake aristocracy. Marcus realized his polished public relations spin was failing rapidly. The charm offensive was useless against raw, verifiable data. His narcissistic survival instincts kicked in. He decided to go on the offensive, attempting to use his commanding presence to regain control of the room. He snatched a secondary microphone from a nearby stand. "You are completely out of your mind, Maya," Marcus roared, trying to project dominance. "This is blatant slander. Everyone in this room knows my business is legitimate. You are twisting standard corporate restructuring to look like a crime because you are a bitter, soon-to-be ex-wife trying to secure a payout. You are trying to ruin a celebration of Black excellence because you could never measure up." He paced across the stage, addressing the crowd, trying to tap into their shared greed and business acumen. "I am a master of asset protection. That is why you hire me. I saw this mental breakdown coming for months. Maya has been spiraling. That is exactly why I took the proactive step of securing our capital. I transferred our core holdings and liquid assets into a secure, impenetrable trust fund under my mother's name. It is a standard defensive maneuver." Marcus smiled, a cold, arrogant smirk that showed his absolute confidence in his own superiority. He truly believed he had outsmarted everyone. He thought the law did not apply to men like him. "You cannot touch it, Maya," he taunted, lowering his voice so it hissed through the speakers. "These investors cannot touch it until the development cycles are complete. It is entirely legal asset protection. I shielded my wealth from a hysterical woman trying to rob me blind. You have absolutely no proof of fraud. I looked at him. I looked at the man I had once thought I loved standing there proudly confessing to financial manipulation while trying to disguise it as business savvy. He had just handed me the final piece of the puzzle on a silver platter. I smiled. It was a slow, genuine smile that reached my eyes. The kind of smile you only get when the chess match is finally over and checkmate is inevitable. Are you sure about that? Marcus's smirk faltered. The absolute confidence in my voice finally managed to pierce his thick armor of arrogance. He looked back at the massive LED screen, his eyes frantically searching the complex web of red arrows for the legal loophole he thought he had so brilliantly engineered. I reached into the small, structured emerald clutch I had carried onto the stage. I pulled out a thick stack of legal documents bound by a heavy brass clip and stamped with a bright, undeniable red seal. I dropped the stack directly onto the acrylic podium. The loud slap of the heavy paper hitting the plastic echoed like a gunshot through the microphone. You are a master of asset protection, Marcus, I said, my voice projecting clearly across the silent ballroom. You successfully transferred all of the core holdings, the company deeds, and the deed to the family mansion into an impenetrable trust completely controlled by your mother. On paper, it looked like a flawless defensive maneuver to hide wealth from a divorce settlement. But you forgot one crucial detail. You forgot to monitor your mother's personal spending habits. Barbara let out a sharp gasp from the front row. The color completely drained from her face, leaving her looking hollow and terrified. To maintain the illusion of extreme wealth to fund the country club memberships, the diamond pendants, and these lavish parties, Barbara needed liquid cash. I explained to the crowd, keeping my eyes locked on Marcus. And since you were funneling all the actual liquidity into Chloe's failing spa to wash it, Barbara had to find cash elsewhere. She took out massive high-interest loans from private predatory lenders. And to secure those loans, she used the newly created trust as collateral. The very trust holding your entire company and the family mansion. Marcus turned slowly to look at his mother. His face was twisted in a mask of absolute horror. "Mom," he demanded, his voice cracking. "Tell me she is lying. Tell me you did not leverage the trust." Barbara could not speak. She simply covered her face with her trembling hands and began to shake. "Predatory lenders do not care about your social standing in Atlanta," I continued, turning my attention back to the investors who were now